Chapter 1. Jean Valjean goes to prison. In 1815 in France, there was a simple worker named Jean Valjean. His parents were already dead, and he was taking care of his sister and her 7 children. He worked hard to give them food and a better life. But that year, the winter was very cold. It became difficult to find work, and Jean Valjean did not have enough money. Soon, there was almost no food in the house. The children were hungry, and the youngest children cried because they had nothing to eat. One evening, Jean Valjean went outside. He was desperate. He saw a bakery and noticed the bread inside. He was very hungry and worried about his family, so he stole a loaf of bread. But he was caught. Jean Valjean was taken to court. Nobody really cared about his difficult life or his hungry family. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison with hard labor. While he was in prison, he tried to escape several times. Every time, he was caught again. Because of these escape attempts, his sentence became longer. In the end, Jean Valjean spent 19 years in prison. After 19 years, he was finally free. But freedom was not easy. Jean Valjean had a yellow passport. It showed that he was a former prisoner. Wherever he went, people looked at him with fear and hate. Nobody wanted to give him a job. Nobody wanted to give him a room. Nobody wanted to share a meal with him. For days, Jean Valjean walked from place to place. He was hungry, tired, and angry. One cold evening, someone showed him the house of the bishop of the town. Jean Valjean knocked on the door. The old bishop did not send him away. He welcomed him into his home. He gave him a warm meal and a bed for the night. For the first time in many years, someone treated Jean Valjean like a human being. But Jean Valjean could not sleep. He was still angry because of everything he had suffered in prison. He did not trust people anymore. During the night, he saw the bishop's silver dishes and decided to steal them. He took the silver and left the house. But the police caught him before morning and brought him back to the bishop. The soldiers put the silver on the table and said that Jean Valjean had stolen it. Jean Valjean thought he was going back to prison. But the bishop did something completely unexpected. He told the soldiers that the silver was not stolen. He said that he had given it to Jean Valjean. Then he gave Jean Valjean 2 silver candle holders as well. The bishop wanted him to use the silver to start a new life. These words changed Jean Valjean. For many years, he had believed that the world was cruel and that people were his enemies. But now, for the first time, someone had shown him kindness without asking for anything in return. Jean Valjean decided to leave his old life behind. Years later, he started a new life under another name. He worked hard and became a successful businessman. He helped poor people, gave people jobs, and helped the town become richer. People began to call him Father Madeleine. Father Madeleine became very popular and respected. The people of the town even chose him as their mayor. But Jean Valjean could not completely escape his past. A police inspector named Javert began to suspect him. Javert believed that Father Madeleine was not an ordinary man. He started to follow him and tried to discover his real identity. Chapter 2. Fantine and Little Cosette. At the same time, a young woman named Fantine was living a very difficult life. Fantine had a little daughter named Cosette. She was poor and had to work to take care of her child. Because Fantine had to work, she left Cosette with the Thénardier family. They owned an inn, and Fantine believed that they would take good care of her daughter. She promised to send them money every month, but the Thénardiers were not kind to Cosette. They treated her like a servant. Their own children had good food and nice clothes, but Cosette had to work all day. She cleaned the house, carried heavy things, and was often shouted at. Fantine did not know how badly they treated her daughter. She continued to send money because she believed Cosette was safe. Then the people at Fantine's workplace discovered that she had a child born outside marriage. They judged her because of this. Fantine lost her job. Without her job, she had no regular money, but she still needed to send money to the Thénardiers. She sold the things she owned, but even that was not enough. Her life became harder and harder. Fantine became sick and desperate. One day, she was arrested after an incident in the street. Father Madeleine learned about her situation and tried to help her. He knew that Fantine was not a bad woman. She was only trying to protect her daughter. He helped her and sent her to a hospital. Fantine asked him to bring Cosette to her. Father Madeleine promised that he would find the little girl, but Fantine became very sick. Before she could see Cosette again, she died. Father Madeleine did not forget his promise. At the same time, Jean Valjean's past came back to him. Another man was arrested because the police believed that he was Jean Valjean. Everyone believed that this man was the famous former prisoner. Jean Valjean knew the truth. He had two choices. If he stayed silent, he could remain free, but an innocent man would go to prison instead of him. Jean Valjean could not accept this. He went to court and told everyone the truth. He said that he was the real Jean Valjean. By doing this, he put his own freedom in danger. Then he remembered his promise to Fantine. He escaped and went to find Cosette. He found the little girl living with the Thénardier family. Jean Valjean took Cosette away from them. From that day on, he became like a father to her. For the first time, Cosette had someone who truly loved and protected her. Jean Valjean and Cosette started a new life together. Chapter 3. Cosette and Marius. Many years passed. The little girl named Cosette grew up. She became a young and beautiful woman. Jean Valjean had spent many years protecting her. He was still afraid that his past would be discovered, so he lived carefully. But Cosette's life was changing. One day, she met a young man named Marius. Marius came from a rich family, but he had chosen his own path. He was an idealistic young man and supported the Republicans. When Cosette and Marius met, they were immediately interested in each other. Soon, they fell deeply in love. Jean Valjean noticed that Cosette had fallen in love with someone. He was afraid of losing her, but he also wanted Cosette to be happy. At the same time, political tension was growing in Paris. Young Republicans began to build barricades in the streets. Marius joined his friends and went to fight at the barricades. When Jean Valjean learned that Marius was there, he went after him. He wanted to protect him. But at the barricades, Jean Valjean saw someone he knew very well. It was Javert. The young revolutionaries had captured Javert. They decided that he should be killed. Jean Valjean was given the job of killing him. He took a gun and went to Javert. For years, Javert had followed him. Jean Valjean had every reason to hate him, but he did not kill him. Instead, he let Javert go. Javert could not understand why. He had always believed that Jean Valjean was a dangerous criminal. But now Jean Valjean had the chance to kill him and had chosen to save his life. This changed Javert deeply. He began to question everything he believed about justice and people. Meanwhile, the fighting at the barricades became more violent. Marius was badly wounded. Jean Valjean refused to leave him behind. He carried Marius on his back and entered the dark sewers of Paris. The tunnels were dangerous and difficult to walk through. But Jean Valjean continued. He carried the wounded Marius through the dark tunnels and finally brought him to safety. Jean Valjean had risked his own life to save the man Cosette loved. But Javert was still looking for him. When Javert saw what Jean Valjean had done, he became even more confused. All his life, Javert had believed that the law was always right. But Jean Valjean had broken the law many times and still showed great kindness. Javert could not understand this conflict. He could not live with it. In the end, he took his own life. Chapter 4. The Last Days of Jean Valjean. Marius slowly recovered from his wounds. Later, he and Cosette were married. Jean Valjean was now an old man. He knew that Marius should learn the truth about his past. So he told Marius that he was really Jean Valjean, the former prisoner. At first, Marius was shocked. He believed that Jean Valjean was a dangerous man and stayed away from him. But later, Marius learned more about the truth. He learned that Jean Valjean had protected Cosette for many years. He learned that Jean Valjean had risked his life to save him at the barricades. He also learned that Jean Valjean had given up his own happiness many times so that Cosette could have a better life. Marius finally understood who Jean Valjean really was. He and Cosette went to see him. Jean Valjean was now very old and weak. His life was coming to an end. Cosette and Marius stayed beside him during his final days. Jean Valjean was no longer alone. The man who had once been hungry, angry, and rejected by everyone had finally found peace. Beside him were the people he loved most. He also still had the silver candle holders that the bishop had given him many years before. Jean Valjean looked at Cosette and Marius. He knew that he could finally rest. He spent his last moments with them and quietly closed his eyes. And so the story of Jean Valjean came to an end. A man who had once been a poor prisoner had spent the rest of his life protecting the people he loved.